Hello and welcome to the Union and Involvement Services Physical Risk module. Today we're going to cover what physical risk looks like and what your organization can do to avoid or mitigate its impact. As a recognized student organization, you must be able to identify, define, and communicate your risk management responsibilities. When planning for an event or activity, the organization must consider every risk that could fall into any of one of the 5 levels of risk. Well-formed plans can prevent innumerable foreseeable events from occurring. Though pre-event plans are essential to managing risk as they allow for appropriate mitigation strategies to be set in place, managing risk is an important part of being a successful student organization and is what makes many of the events held on campus possible. The best time to undertake a comprehensive risk management program is before an incident occurs at an event. What is risk? Let's look at the first definition. Any situation involving the potential for exposure to danger. It is important to remember that there is never a guarantee that everything will go right, so it is important to plan ahead, as risk is always there. If those risks are managed properly, we can make sure no harm occurs. There are 3 types of physical risk. First, preventable risks, those that are not inherent to the functioning of the club or its events. Next, there are strategy risks, risks that come along with the nature and activity of certain organizations. These require a risk management model focused on reducing likelihood of occurrence. And finally, external risks, factors outside of the control of the group. These require a focus on identifying possible risky situations and planning ahead. Physical risk can be inherent to the nature of your organization or can arise in specific events. These include anything that involves a potential threat to the physical well-being of participants. This can include potential for food poisoning, injuries at or in transit, or from an event, or harm as a result of behaviors of participants. Truman State University's Student Code of Conduct has provisions meant to protect students from physical risks. These are select provisions that relate to physical risk. The full code can be found online at conduct.truman.edu. You are encouraged to consult it for more information. How can we prevent risk? Using a simple 3-step process to identify, assess, and mitigate risks. First, identifying risk. Look for and think about situations that cause physical harm. Next, assessing the risk, deciding how likely the potential risk is to occur and how harmful it could be, both to your own members and non-member participants. Finally, mitigating that risk, choosing a proactive plan of action to reduce or eliminate the risk of your situation. You are taking this module because the activities of your organization have a greater potential of physical risk. Can you identify what some of those things are? What are some common items to consider when thinking about physical risk? This list is not inclusive of everything, but highlights major areas encountered by organizations. First, general injury. A sprained ankle or broken arm could be due to terrain, roughhousing, uneven surfaces, or just a simple accident. Travel, being injured on your way to or from the event, modes of transportation, etc. Allergies, food poisoning. This includes the top food allergens, including milk, eggs, peanut, tree nuts, fish, shellfish, soy, and wheat. Be sure to ask your members if they have any of these typical allergies before planning to serve food with any of these ingredients. Environmental allergens. These can include bees, grass, etc. And alcohol-related/induced injury. Underage drinking, engaging in unsafe activities while under the influence, such as drinking games and other forms of rapid or excessive consumption. When identifying and assessing these risks, there are a lot of things to consider. Ask yourself these questions when organizing activities. What are the inherent risks involved in our activities and events? What types of risk does our organization primarily deal with? Are there physical risks specific to our participants? What are the indirect ways that our participants could be physically harmed? How could our participants be injured traveling to and from the event? What type of food and drink, allergens, and dangers will be present? Is there a potential for inclement weather? Are you creating environments where participants don't feel safe? Does any of your activity involve a potential attractive nuisance? After assessing risk, you should make a plan to mitigate it. Make a plan using one of the following strategies. First, eliminating the source. If what is causing the risk is not essential to your event, get rid of whatever imposes the physical danger or risk. Two, you can reduce the probability. If you cannot eliminate the risk, find ways that you can make the risk less likely to incur harm, such as closing off areas, access to areas, posting clear signs, etc. And finally, you can just prepare for the risk. With whatever risk is left, make a plan to be prepared for the worst case scenario. Identify who will be the responsible party. Even if nothing happens, it is better to be prepared. Let's look at a direct example. We are all members of the skydiving club. We are going to be taking folks out of town for an overnight trip to go skydiving next morning. What should we consider when evaluating risk? If we do the steps, here are some questions we should plan to answer. Identify who will be driving us and in what condition is the vehicle. Does their insurance cover injury? Are drivers licensed with a history of safe driving? Are we staying in a safe area in a secure hotel? What will we do for meals? Will they be had as a group or will individuals need to plan for themselves? Does anyone on the trip have food allergies? What about the diving event itself? Have we verified the safety of the venue of the event? Have we made sure all participants are informed about the safe practices for the activity? Are we insured as an organization should something go wrong? What if we get there and the weather is bad? Do we get our money back? Can we move to another date? Now we must assess how likely risk is to occur and if they are worth taking or not. If we want to proceed, we need to work on a mitigation plan. If a mitigation plan cannot be developed, we should consider whether or not to proceed. Can you think of other risks of this event? What types of risk are they? What types of things would you do to reduce the overall risk? Can we eliminate the source of the risk? Probably not. Skydiving is a risky activity and it's the main part of the event. Can we reduce the probability of a poor outcome? Yes. We can determine the safest way to travel, ensure that all are driving, have adequate driving records, and are staying in a hotel with good safety practices, and require liability waivers. We can also make sure we have a way to contact our advisor and have accurate records of emergency info for all participants. As for the drive itself, we can ensure that all participants are trained and certified in safety, best practices, verify the legitimacy of the venue, and ensure we have reliable transportation to and from the event and monitor weather conditions for travel. We can make sure we take note of food allergies so we can be cautious of snacks during the drive. We can make sure we are selecting places to eat with a wide variety of food options. We can make sure all insurance is paid and we are compliant with the policy. We will likely be required to sign waivers for participation. Please note, these documents do not necessarily provide legal protection. They are an acknowledgement of activity. However, it is your responsibility to ensure that appropriate safety measures are being taken. Insurance and being compliant with requirements is the safest route. In the case of cancellation or unsafe conditions, does the venue provide refunds? What activities would we do should the dive be canceled? Finally, what can be done to prepare for the remaining risk? Being prepared for emergencies should something go wrong can help us prepare for any risk we couldn't eliminate or lessen. Overall, you need to develop a plan that is specific to your RSO operations. If you don't have provisions written down, we encourage you to do so. These should be evaluated on a routine basis for edits. A lot can change in a year. Some things to consider when evaluating risks for your organization include: do you have a solid communication plan for if things go wrong? Are all members of the organization on the same page regarding safety protocols? Do you have a risk management plan written down for new members to review and learn? Does the organization have insurance? If not, does it need to consider getting a policy? Are we planning activities that would invalidate our insurance if we do have it? And finally, have you considered external risks that impact your operations? If you have additional questions, please contact orgs@truman.edu to set up a meeting to talk through risk prevention.